But there's one rebate we still haven't talked about,
Oh.
which is owner-built homes and
Yes.
substantial renovations. And we did touch on it, but that's the more complicated of the rebate applications, because you have to gather all your invoices together. So if I were to knock down my home and build a new home as my primary residence or substantially renovate it, I would gather all my invoices related to construction, whether I used a contractor or whether I was my own general contractor and hired the trades myself. And I would gather all those invoices related to construction, the framing, the demolition, the foundation, the windows, the doors, the lighting fixtures, the plumbing fixtures, the door handles, the flooring, et cetera, and chart them all. So and you have to show the government what you spent the money on. For example, I spent it on windows. I spent it on insulation. You'd have to identify to the government who you bought it from. So the company, for example, who was the window company. You then have to tell the government what their business number is. And then you have to tell the government when you bought it. And this all comes off the invoices. When you bought it, what the invoice number was, what the total amount that you spent, and what the HST you spent. And you got to put it in this very big chart. And then you do the calculations. And as long as you spent $300,000 or more, thereabouts, the actual number is $302,840. You will get the maximum rebate, which is $16,080. However, you can get back more if you buy a piece of development land. It doesn't happen in Toronto because there are no development lots in Toronto. So you go to Newmarket or you go to Aurora or even Mississauga, Caledon, etc., and you buy land and you pay HST on that land, and then you build a home for yourself as your primary residence, you can get back $24,000. And again, it's a 2-year time limit from when you finish the project, when you actually completed construction or moved in. I want to go back though to one area that is a tricky area, which is when you purchase from a builder. Now, most people will buy, when they buy new, will buy a new home from a subdivision developer, a reputable developer. And as I said before, the rebate is included in the statement of closing adjustments. You don't have to make application. Or they'll buy the condo from a condo development. And again, you don't have to worry about that application because it's all handled in your statement of closing adjustments. But what if you buy a one-off home that a builder decides to spec? I see it all the time in Toronto. Builder takes an existing bungalow and takes the roof off, guts the interior, doesn't take the whole thing down, and builds a nice new modern looking 2-story with all the amenities, nice finishes, beautiful modern looking home, where it was just an older, let's say 60s or 70s bungalow before, even predating that. That home is subject to HST. But often these builders try to represent those homes as resale homes, or they don't understand that that a substantial renovation, based on what the federal government says, is new construction. It doesn't have to be new from the ground up for the federal government to consider that subject to HST or exempt from HST. As long as it meets their criteria of substantial renovation, which is 90% gut. All 4 walls can remain standing too. If you gut the interior by removing all the drywall and taking it off to brick and stud, and you have the intent to sell it for a profit and engage in a business activity, doesn't matter if you're a corporation or an individual who's just doing it once, that home is subject to HST. And if the HST isn't handled properly, then the buyer of that property can in fact apply for the rebate. And then the builder of that property, because of housing prices in Toronto, they sell it, for example, for $1.5 million, which is not an atypical price in Toronto. They could be on the hook for $150,000 or $160,000 of HST that is embedded in that purchase price of 1.4 million, 1.4, 1.5, etc. And there have been many cases like that. You have to understand, the lawyers, the real estate lawyers have to understand the HST implications. But in some cases, the lawyers can be forgiven because all they're looking at is a transaction. They don't know if it's new construction or not. They don't know the extent of a renovation. And so it's not their job to look at that. They're relying on their clients to say, hey, I'm closing this property, can you close it for me? And they don't really have to understand the HST implications about that. But I believe real estate agents should.
Okay. Or they go to a professional like yourself who will take care of everything.
Exactly. So they will. So when I do this, it's a sort of a three-step process. I will take a look to see, and I've got a number of out there right now that are being examined by the HST department. The client will come to me and say, Rami, I bought this home from a builder. I said, okay, let's determine if it's new construction, and I can go to the city of Toronto and determine that, hey, a new building permit was issued. So it's new construction, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's subject to HST. Again, it's based on intent. Was the intent of this builder to move in or not? Well, then I look, well, who's the vendor? Who's the builder? Well, if it's a numbered company, then for sure their intent was to sell it for a profit, to engage in a business activity. So that's step two. And step three is to determine if the purchaser is the first occupant of that home. Because in order to be eligible for the rebate, they have to be the first occupant of that home. If the builder perhaps put a renter in there before, then they won't be eligible for the rebate. But again, that doesn't exempt the builder from being liable for the HST because it's new construction and subject to HST. So it's a bit of a complicated situation, but people who buy new homes, one-off homes, wherever they are, could be eligible for a $24,000 rebate, depending on the situation, if they bought from a builder who was engaged in a building activity. Now, in Ontario, new construction is covered by Tarion, and Tarion has requirements of builders. If you're a Tarion builder, you come with a lot of credibility because you have to register with Tarion. There's certain financial considerations, and if you're building a new home, there's warranties involved in it too. Often these one-off builders are not registered with Tarion, and it should be a warning sign to buyers who buy these type of homes because they're not necessarily protected on sort of warranty issues. If something goes wrong, the builder they don't have any kind of way to make this builder responsible for deficiencies. But if it's a Tarion builder, so you buy a condo from a Tarion condo, you buy a subdivision home from a Tarion covered subdivision, you're protected for deficiencies. Something goes wrong, the builder is responsible for fixing it. You have a leaky basement, you have a water not turning on, electrical problem, and that is covered by the warranty, then you have some issues that you can deal with that will be covered by your Tarion warranty. But these one-off situations can be dangerous.